What is the most embarrassing or shameful moment have you ever had in your life? I mean, it was your fault. You were not a victim of some bullying or abuse or prank. Did you shout in anger? Did you complain against God? Did you wail? Did you become irritated or hot-headed? Did you make a hasty or wrong decision because of that? Did the shame break you? How did you react? Did you pray and listen to God and ask for His help? Have you gone over it? Or does it still hurt you up to now? Certainly nobody wants to be shamed, either deservingly or undeservingly. As we have been discussing, David deserved to be punished. Shame came with his guilt, even from judgmental people who were not involved in his sins. Last week, we ended with the story of David fleeing from Jerusalem to avoid any violent encounter with his son, Absalom, who was advancing toward the city. This was the evil that God raised up against David, and it was not over. David left 10 concubines in charge of his palace. He told Zadok and Abiathar, with their sons Ahimaaz and Jehonathan, accordingly, to go back to the city and continue their religious services there. He also told Hushai to go back to the palace and serve as counter-advisor for Absalom against Ahithophel. The Cheretis and the Philetis joined him in exile. He also allowed Ittai and the Gittis to go with him. Tonight we turn to chapter 16 of 2 Samuel. This is part 29 of the David saga. The title of our message is What to Do When You Are Down. Again, David was under God's discipline. The Yahweh spared him from death penalty, if you remember. But he raised up evil against him from his own house as punishment. Absalom, his son, is the personification of that evil. We ended our story with him weeping on the Mount of Olives, which was at the eastern side of the city of David. So, how did David handle the shame of being dethroned as king by his very own son? In tonight's story, we will see more shaming of David when the people of Benjamin, which was the northern side of Jerusalem, began insulting him. They blamed him for the fall of their very own king, King Shaul, David's father-in-law. Now, if I ask you, how should you react when someone's pulling you down when you are already down? That's difficult to deal with. Let me draw 5 points from this episode in the David saga. When someone's pulling you down when you are already down, letter A, be grateful to your supporters. And it's good to have loyal supporters with you. Now, David did a good thing to Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, the grandson of King Shaul. Now, he will receive goodness from him at the lowest moment of his life. 2 Samuel chapter 16 verse 1. When David had gone a short distance beyond the summit, there was Ziba, the steward of Mephibosheth, waiting to meet him. He had a string of donkeys saddled and loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 cakes of raisins, 100 cakes of figs, and a skin of wine. Wow, that's very good. Do you remember this person, Ziba? We talked about him in part 21, chapter 9 of 2 Samuel. David wanted to show kindness to the house of Shaul, and he found a son of his best friend Jehonathan and grandson of Shaul. He found Mephibosheth, who was lame. The king restored everything that used to belong to Shaul, and he put Ziba, Mephibosheth's servant, to steward all his master's possession, while Mephibosheth dined with the king and with his family. Now, we see him not forgetting the kindness of David to him. He went out to meet him with so many supplies. What were they for? Let's continue in verse 2. The king asked Ziba, "Why have you brought these?" Ziba answered, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on. The bread and fruit are for the men to eat, and the wine is to refresh those who become exhausted in the wilderness." What a kind act by Ziba. He prepared so much for the king, knowing that those supplies would help him, to some extent, in the difficult journey he was about to take. In Filipino, we call this pabaon. A good person never forgets the people who have helped him in their worst moments. In this case, David helped Ziba earlier on. So if you were David, you would reap the kindness you have shown to people previously. Now, if you were Ziba, you should be there for people who have lifted you up in the past. Alright? So, where was David going here? In the last phrase, the verse says, in the wilderness, into the wild. It is not a civilized place. There are no people there, no houses, no wells, and no conveniences of the urban life. There are wild animals, danger, Now, you have to learn how to survive with the resources there. It is tough to live in the wilderness. Now, for David, he was used to such kind of environment. He knew how to survive in the wilderness, but he had so many people with him to sustain, especially his family, in this difficult journey. So, this was harder for him. Verse 3, the king then said, "Where is your master's grandson?" Ziva said to him, "He is staying in Jerusalem because he thinks, today the Israelis will restore to me my grandfather's kingdom." Well, perhaps this was very disappointing news for David, but not really surprising. After all, Mephibosheth's connection with Shaul as his grandson was unbreakable. Seeing that David was falling, the temptation to benefit from that was there, even though he was not powerful enough. But maybe he was thinking that when both David and Absalom fall, well, the people could look up to him and make him the next king. He would be the winner in the end. Correct? Now, was Mephibosheth ungrateful to David, who took care of him, brought him to his palace, and restored his grandfather's possession to him? Maybe. We cannot quickly judge him for this. But for Ziva, he was loyal to David. Now, just because Ziva showed kindness to David does not mean he defected from Mephibosheth. The point of the story was he came to give aid to David. And because of that, we can say Ziva was a very nice man. Verse 4, then the king said to Ziva, "All that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours." "I humbly bow," Ziva said. "May I find favor in your eyes, my lord the king." It is unlikely that Ziva was lying about Mephibosheth. Why would he look for the favor of David, who was already disgraced at this time? He met David to return kindness to him, with donkeys and with some supplies. There was no benefit for him if he will malign his master Mephibosheth and get some favor from David. He wasn't looking for that. He wanted to return kindness to David. So granting that Ziva was telling the truth about Mephibosheth, David decided to award the possession of Mephibosheth to Ziva. Why? Was he retaliating against the grandson of Shaul? Maybe so. The layman was ungrateful and disloyal after all that he did to him. Will this be binding since David had just abandoned the throne? Perhaps. Ziva could argue that unless Absalom has already taken his throne, David was still the king. Alright? What Mephibosheth can do against this ruling of the king, King David? He was slain. So Ziva was actually in charge of all his properties, so he couldn't do anything about this if Ziva claims that David has already awarded to him all his possessions. Now, did Ziva expect this? I don't think so. He wasn't asking for it. Ziva accepted David's ruling here. We can say he humbled himself, he bowed down. Rightfully so. That's the right thing to do to respond when you are being shown that kind of favor. So letter A, be grateful to your supporters. David was very grateful to Ziva. These people may not be able to help you very much, but at least they made an effort. In this case, Ziva made a huge effort to bring David some supplies. So acknowledge even the little support that they can give you because they care for you. Show some appreciation to them, right? When someone's pulling you down, when you are already down, letter B, be humble. So this is the difficult part, especially that David knew that this was the Yahweh's punishment on him, this section of the story. He had to accept the shame. He could not avoid it. If he were to reject and resist the discipline, the Yahweh could make it worse for him. How does a king accept insult from his constituents, especially from ordinary people? Some leaders have so much pride that they get mad when ordinary people insult them, disrespect them, but not in the case of David. Let's see. Verse 5, as King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Shaul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera, and he cursed as he came out. Wait a minute, where is Bahurim? Now, this was within the tribe of Benjamin. Now, why would David pass through the tribe of Shaul's family? Well, because he had no choice. Absalom was coming from the south, and David had to flee to the opposite direction, which was the tribe of Benjamin. Did David see this coming? Maybe. Maybe he was prepared for this. He knew that some people within Benjamin didn't like him. Okay? He had been nice to the people of Benjamin. However, the people could not take out of their minds that David succeeded Shaul. So even though the Philistines killed Shaul in battle and David honored Shaul and his sons after they were killed in battle, well, some still blamed David for the fall of their king. Did David try to pass by Bahurim without being noticed? Maybe I think that was very impossible. Now, a man named Shimei showed up and had the courage to speak harshly against the disgraced king. Now, you can expect that from people who are very angry at leaders. And of course, he felt justified to do this against David. Maybe he was thinking he's on the side of God. Have you been cursed before? How did it feel to be cursed when all your life you have never spoken such words against anybody? Will you cry? Will you go crazy? It's understandable. Okay? But keep your faith. Verse 6, he pelted David and all the king's officials with stones, though all the troops and the special guards were on David's right and left. Shimei did not only verbally abuse David and his officials, he tried to hurt them by throwing stones at them. Imagine how painful that is. He had the guts to do that against King David and his soldiers with him. Well, come to think of it, he had no chance of winning a fight against David because David was a great commander and he had the best soldiers around him. And possibly Shimei was trying to incite a mob against David, especially they were in Benjamin. If you were one of the soldiers, how would you personally feel about being cursed with your leader? You're loyal to your leader, right? Would you blame your leader? You got me involved in this. Of course, you can't say that. But would you protect your leader? Just like what David's soldiers did to him. They stuck with him and they protected him. Did David worry about his men's loyalty? Did he make a loyalty check? Did he encourage his men to be loyal to him? Probably. Verse 7, as he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel. With all the insults and accusations, did David ever think, yes, he was right, I'm a wicked man, and I deserve such curses? Maybe. Now, for some people who received such kind of a treatment, some of them commit suicide. They can't take the shame. But for some people, they become more wicked since they already had that reputation. All right, sure, let me get as worse as much as I can. Anyway, I'm considered as a wicked man. Verse 8, the Yahweh has repaid you for all the blood you shed in the household of Shaul, in whose place you have reigned. The Yahweh has given the kingdom into the hands of your son Absalom. You have come to ruin because you are a murderer. Some people from Benjamin again still held a grudge over David, blaming him for the fall of Shaul. Are those accusations true? Come to think of it, whose blood did David shed in the household of Shaul? None, not a single soul. So those are false accusations. Now, the people of Benjamin interpreted David's exile as God's retribution. Rightly so. In fact, David was suffering from the consequences of his sins with Bathsheba, and he was also guilty for the death of Uriah, even though Shimei was using another case against David, which was baseless. Did Yahweh give the kingdom of David to Absalom because David was a murderer? Yes, temporarily, because he murdered Uriah, but none from Shaul's house. So that's letter B, be humble. What would you do if you know that you deserve to be criticized? But you were criticized for the wrong reasons, just like what Shimei accused David of. David wasn't guilty of any bloodshed in the household of Shaul. Now, take it. Take it still as God's way of dealing with you for the right reasons. David had to take the bitter pill of discipline of God, which he caused upon himself. It is useless to vindicate oneself in the wrong place to the wrong people. Right? What would it benefit David to defend himself against Shimei? Right? Let God vindicate you. People may have their own opinion. Let them think whatever they want. They will give an account to God for judging other people. Well, anyway, God is the only judge and He is the right person to whom you can prove your case, whether you're blameless or not. Right? The enemy will try to crush you even when you are already down. You know, in boxing, you can't do that. In MMA, you can still beat up your opponent when you're already down because the enemy plays unfairly. When someone's pulling you down, when you are already down, letter C, do not aggravate the situation. Don't make it worse. When people insult us unjustly, we naturally want to defend ourselves and avenge for ourselves. Knowing that adversity has come from Yahweh, David learned to control himself, accept the verbal abuse and the disrespect, and not take revenge against those people. Resisting God's discipline will make things worse for us. Keep that in mind. Verse 9, Then Avishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and cut off his head. Avishai was so angry at this disrespectful Benyamini. David may have found some courage when he saw Avishai stirred up to defend him. Remember, Avishai was Yoav's brother. He was also his nephew. Zeruiah was David's brother. So it was natural for the nephew to defend his uncle, the king. David controlled himself and did not start any trouble. Especially that was the wrong place to do it. What if he did? More trouble would come. The report of him being there will be quickly known, and people might have gathered together around him and fight him, and that would be worse. Verse 10, the king said, What does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Yahweh said to him, Curse David, who can ask, Why do you do this? So David was stopping Avishai. Okay. David knew how to respond. As he kept his composure, he also tried to control others' impatience, which was already about to break. Remember, they also took the shame that he only deserved. So that's why David answered that way. So be understanding when they're also getting upset of the shame that you only deserve. So you should show them you are in control of yourself so you can help them have control of themselves. In these trying times, it is very difficult to keep your composure, especially when you know you have people around you who still understands you and they can react negatively. But be an example of patience. Do not let them aggravate the situation. You may be trying to avoid it, but they could make it worse if they lost their self-control. Verse 11, David then said to Avishai and all his officials, My son, my own flesh and blood, is trying to kill me. How much more then this Benyamini? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Yahweh has told him to. It may be that the Yahweh will look upon my misery and restore to me his covenant blessing instead of his curse today. So David had to restrain Avishai and all his officials. Why? He was not surprised at the persecution from this Benyamini. Remember, they blamed David for the fall of Shaul, and they could not blame the Philistines. What's the use? So they looked toward David, the rival of King Shaul. Look, persecution from inside, like friends and family members, is actually more painful than persecution from outsiders. Correct? So the Benyamini were their fellow Israelis, so it was very painful for David to receive such kind of persecution from his own people. Did God really speak to Shimei to curse David? Now, I think God permitted Shimei to do whatever he wanted to do, especially that evil was in his mind against David. Knowing that David could take that verbal abuse, God knew it, and he could show his real character and strength. David knew that God shows grace to those who were afflicted, and so he still trusted in him. Who else can you trust but God to vindicate you, to restore you? And that is the faith of David. He had faith in the Lord that he will restore him soon. Leave him alone, let him curse. Now, let them do wrong. Do not retaliate. Do not curse back. Do not worsen the situation. Wait for the right moment and see if the curse will come true. And David was prepared for that because he knew it would be coming from the Lord. But if not, then the Lord was vindicating him. See, God can protect us from people's unjust curse, especially that people have no right to judge. Only God does. Alright? Remember in the book of Numbers, Balak hired Balaam to curse Israel. But did God allow Balaam to curse Israel? No. We find this summary in Deuteronomy 23 verse 5 as Moses was reminding them of his grace upon them. Nevertheless, the Yahweh your God was not willing to listen to Balaam, but the Yahweh your God turned the curse into a blessing for you because the Yahweh your God loves you. So, if you really don't deserve it, the Lord will protect you. He will not allow curses of people to take effect. Alright? David believed that God lifts up the miserable. If the curse comes true and he becomes miserable, the Yahweh can have grace toward him and he will have pity on him. Keep your hope in the Yahweh when you are suffering because of discipline. All right? Have you been afflicted this way? Let's see the example of Yaakov on how he endured injustice for several years at the hand of his father-in-law, Lavan. This was his humbling moment, and it was necessary for him to go through it. You will see that in the end, the Yahweh had mercy on him and gave him grace far beyond the sufferings that he experienced under the hands of Lavan. Genesis 31 verse 36. Yaakov was angry and took Lavan to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Lavan. "How have I wronged you that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the two of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Yitzhak had not been with me, you would have surely sent me away empty-handed. But Elohim have seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you." Look at the faith of Yaakov. He knew that God would protect him from Lavan. The Yahweh protected Yaakov from all the unjust treatment Lavan gave to him. The Elohim saved him and rebuked his deceiver Lavan. And to honor the Lord, Genesis 41 verse 52, the second son he named Ephraim and said, "It is because Elohim had made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." So while you are in the land of suffering, the Lord can make you fruitful. He can bless you. Expect that. So that's letter C. Do not aggravate the situation. So when you pay evil for evil, how can you learn from your discipline? How can the Yahweh have mercy on you? So avoid retaliating. Remember, you are still in God's hands. Even when He allowed you to be insulted and harmed, you will make it through that evil moment. When someone's pulling you down, when you are already down, letter D, endure and seek God's strength. David did not linger in Bahurim. He moved forward. He did not let this bad moment weaken him. Verse 13. So David and his men continued along the road while Shimei was going along the hillside opposite him, cursing as he went and throwing stones at him and showering him with dirt. Wow, what a way to treat a disgraced king. The enemy will not stop until he forces you to lose your self-control. And he entices you to react negatively, to make it worse for yourself. Do not fall for this. Do not be triggered. When you have gone far enough, you will not be hurt anymore. You're too far. So shake off that bad experience. Now, in the age of internet, some people will not stop doing evil against you. Practically, block them. Help yourself. Focus on the next destination. Bahurim is only a place where you need to pass by. But the Yahweh is waiting for you on your next stop. You believe that? Verse 14, the king and all the people with him arrived at their destination exhausted, and there he refreshed himself. Thank God that one trial is over. Maybe another one is coming up. Understandably, they were exhausted. Yeah, but you made it. You can regain strength. He is still the source of your strength. So shake off that difficult trial, but learn from the lesson it brought you. Do not bring those bad words thrown at you to the next phase of your journey. Okay? Go through the debriefing of the Yahweh. You know what debriefing is, right? The debriefing of Yahweh will encourage you, will uplift you. This is very important. So take time to be debriefed by the Yahweh. Then after that, debrief your friends who experienced the insults with you. Talk to them. Listen to them. Learn from them. And make them realize that God has sustained you. Be grateful that they stuck with you. Encourage them. Increase their faith. Now look at that last part of the verse. He refreshed himself. Again, that's very important. You need God's refreshment. And it's your choice to do that. You can rant or you can refresh yourself. That's your choice. I encourage you, do not dwell on the negative experiences. So that's letter D, endure and seek God's strength. Yes, God gave you the strength to endure evil. He has more strength to give to you, and He has energy to refresh you. All right? What can you do now to regain your strength in the Lord? Go on a spiritual retreat. Take enough time to rest. Attend prayer meetings and worship services. Ask those who have gone through such difficult moments and gain wisdom from them. And perhaps you can also share your experiences to them because maybe they're also going through the same things, right? When someone's pulling you down, when you are already down, letter E, let the discipline be implemented. We come to the disturbing part of the Yahweh's discipline of David. Remember the prophecy in 2 Samuel chapter 12 verses 11 and 12. This is what the Yahweh says. Out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to the one who is close to you. And he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, and I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel. You may find this objectionable because the Yahweh allowed the concubines to be abused. It does not mean that Yahweh wanted the concubines to suffer. Don't blame the Yahweh. He only predicted it. Okay? Blame David. Well, actually, the wives were spared. The concubines suffered in their place. Verse 15. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel was with him. Now, Absalom probably felt so victorious upon arrival in Jerusalem without a fight because David had already fled. Imagine how he was bragging himself before the people. You're now under mine. You gotta submit to me. Just imagine that, okay? Now, Ahithophel publicly showed his support for Absalom. Now, this must have been a very big surprise in the sight of people because he was highly respected as a confidant of David and almost like a court prophet. We'll see that in verse 23. The people might have thought that through Ahithophel, the Yahweh had chosen Absalom as the new king. That was the big deception there. Absalom did not have the anointing of the Lord. All right? Verse 16. Then Hushai the Archi, David's confidant, went to Absalom and said to him, Long live the king! Long live the king! So Hushai presented himself as the new ally of Absalom when he hailed him, Long live the king! So he wanted to remain as confidant. Remember, he was trying to maintain his position in the palace so he could be the spy of David. Verse 17, Absalom said to Hushai, So this is the love you show for your friend. If he's your friend, why didn't you go with him? So Absalom was skeptical about Hushai. He showed his doubt about the intentions of this man who was welcoming him well. He wanted to test him. So he questioned his disloyalty to David and his submission to him. Well, actually, Absalom could have executed anyone there who was loyal to David. But see, they were not resisting the new king. So he didn't have to fight them. We know that Hushai was David's spy. Will he be able to justify his change of allegiance from David to Absalom, since the new king considered all who stayed in Jerusalem as servants of David? He needed to know if they were willing to serve him in the same way they served the previous king. So far, we have not pointed out why letter E is let the discipline be implemented. Hang on. The author is still showing us how David was able to have a spy accepted into the palace. Verse 18, Hushai said to Absalom, No, the one chosen by the Yahweh, by these people, and by all the men of Israel, his will I be, and I will remain with him. Furthermore, whom should I serve? Should I not serve the son? Just as I have served your father, so I will serve you. Very nice word from Hushai. I think Hushai was being smart here, being wise. He gave an excellent answer. Even though the Yahweh has not actually chosen Absalom as the new king, but he went along with the propaganda that the Yahweh has chosen him as the new king, maybe through Ahithophel, and the people acknowledge that. So why would he resist the popular vote? He said he will serve any leader or king chosen by the Yahweh. By the people, which is not really true. Absalom deceived the people that he was the new king by a nationwide declaration. They were innocent of that. And by all the men of Israel. Okay. In other words, he accepted that Absalom had this unquestionable mandate by God and the people, Hushai was willing to serve whoever was in power. Again, the point is he needed to convince Absalom to accept him as his new confidant. Okay? Now, we go to the discipline part. It had to be implemented against David for his sins of covetousness, murder, and adultery. Verse 20, Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your advice. What should we do?" He's excited to rule as king there, to show people that he was the new person in charge and to really impose his authority upon the people. So Absalom turned to Ahithophel, naturally, for his advice, what to do to display his power. The new king did not seek the advice of Hushai because perhaps he was still skeptical of him. Perhaps he accepted him to remain in the palace, but he was not fully entrusting himself to him yet. Verse 21, Ahithophel answered, "Sleep with your father's concubines, whom he left to take care of the palace. Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself obnoxious to your father, and the hands of everyone with you will be more resolute." Ahithophel was reinforcing Absalom's desire to show his power and authority over the palace and over the kingdom. So at this time, they already discovered that the concubines were left there. Okay, so Ahithophel was triggering Absalom's pride and desire. So he gave an advice that he would first hurt David so bad by insulting the deposed king with a public display of owning the concubines of his father. And second, that would send a message to the whole kingdom that this takeover was a clear success. And let us see that those who sided with Absalom were right after all. So he was strengthening them, right? Verse 22, so they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and he slept with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Was Ahithophel aware of the judgment of the Yahweh on David through the prophet Nathan, specifically chapter 12, verses 11 to 12, which we already read a while ago? I think he was aware of this. Perhaps he was there when Nathan was pronouncing the judgment to David. So that is why he suggested this to Absalom. He wanted Absalom to fulfill and implement that discipline of the Yahweh to David. He was in a position to do so. It would not be wrong since the Yahweh proclaimed it, declared it. And he would be doing the Yahweh a favor if he implemented that judgment on David. He would be proud of being instrument of Yahweh's judgment against his father, and maybe also as retaliation against his father for previously not accepting him or declaring him as the new firstborn. Perhaps Absalom did not wait too long to carry out the suggestion of Ahithophel, especially that no one can say it was wrong. He had the right to receive whatever his father used to own, including concubines. And perhaps he was excited about that part, the sex part. Verse 23, now in those days, the advice Ahithophel gave was like that of one who inquires of Elohim. That was how both David and Absalom regarded all of Ahithophel's advice. So in this verse, the author gives us the explanation on why Absalom took the advice of Ahithophel. His father regarded him high, like a court prophet, even though he was only an advisor. He would have thought that the suggestion of what to do with David's concubines was from the Yahweh. It was his directive. So it's just right. There's nothing wrong with it. The people and King David respected Ahithophel so highly that Absalom also brought into the evil advice as coming from the Yahweh, which is not true. You see, evil had been working in the life of Absalom since he waited to get his opportunity to kill Amnon. Now, evil kept on working in his life, in his rulership in the kingdom. Make your father's concubine yours and show it to all the people. Now, if you object, will you say that you're better than Ahithophel? And will you say that the new king cannot sleep with his new concubines that his father used to own? The king had the right to do whatever he wanted. So that's letter E. Let the discipline be implemented. The Yahweh was the one disciplining David. No one can win over him. Resisting the discipline will not help. Better submit to it if you're being disciplined. Now, the discipline will not be pleasant, but it is for our good. Discipline reminds us that we should not despise the word of the Yahweh, which was the violation of David against him. We should honor him and not violate his will. What to do when you are down? The David Saga Part 29, 2 Samuel chapter 16. Letter A, be grateful to your supporters. Letter B, be humble. Letter C, do not aggravate the situation. Letter D, endure and seek God's strength. And letter E, let the discipline be implemented.